friends, welcome back to my channel, Clover Rosie Art. Today I am going to set up my January bullet journal setup. Firstly, I already set up my overview of 2021, so I am going to flip through it and show it to you guys first. After my title page, I have this letter that I will write now to my future self at the end of 2021. That is when I will reply. I have my future log where I can look forward on the next 6 months of 2021. I love how this spread turned out. After that page, I have my resolutions and goals on the next 2 pages. I have many goals and resolutions, as you can see on here. If you want to see them, you can pause the video and read it. One that I will say is that I want to grow this YouTube channel. After that page, I have these 2021 in photos pages, where I will put a Polaroid photo every month. I also wrote this quote that says, "Believe in the power of new beginnings." I think this is a very fitting quote for 2021. I also have places I've been 2021 and a birthdays page where I can keep track of all of the birthdays of my friends and family. The next pages of my 2021 bullet journal setup is an About Me page, which was really fun to create. On the other page, I have 2021 achievements page. Next, I have pages where I can keep track of my savings and where I am spending my money. I have a few different funds that I'm saving for: Disney senior trip, college, pet fund, and Toys for Tots fund. Now let's get started on the title and quote page for January. First, I would like to say that for this month, I am basing my spread off of one that the bullet journal YouTuber The Lettered Creative did last December. I loved the constellation and moon theme and decided to tie it into my setup. Make sure to check her out because I love her bullet journal videos and setups. My dad has this really cool telescope, and my sister, dad, and I love to look at the stars and the planets, although it seems to be cloudy a lot around us, so we can't look at the stars most of the time, sadly. We even missed the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction because it was cloudy. I was really looking forward to that, and I am still so sad about it. First, I am coloring the moons on the title and quote page black, as if they are new moons. The one on the title page got finished pretty fast, but it definitely takes a while to color in the one on the quote page. After all of that coloring is finally finished, it's time to start coloring in the many stars around the moons. I'm using this marigold colored paint pen to first color in about half of the stars on this 2-page spread. I love how shiny that this paint pen made the stars look. You can see it on camera, but it's even shinier in real life. It's the same color that I used as the gold for the 2021 setup pages themed. After that, I'm outlining the rest of the stars that I didn't color in with my paint pen with my black fine liner. Then, I color inside of those black lines with my dark yellow dual Tombow brush pen. All around those stars, I add in black dots that I think ties the stars and the new moons together and fills up a lot of the blank space in the background. Now that the background is finished, I am going back to working on the main title part where I outline the many constellations that I drew around the title moon. I made sure that all of the constellations that I used here were as close as I could get to real constellations. Many are the constellations for zodiac signs, but of course there are other constellations in there too. I drew dots as the stars in the constellations because they were too tiny to be the actual star shapes that I drew in the background of this page. The more constellations I draw, I feel the more that the spread is coming together. I always seem to use black and gold for my January spreads for some reason, as I also did that for my January spread last year. Maybe they're just the colors I associate with the new year and a fresh start for some reason. I'm really not sure. I wrote January with my white gel pen as well as the quote on the left page. I really resonated with that quote when I saw it in someone else's bullet journal video. I forgot which one it was from, but it really made me think. I used the same marigold color for the stars to color in the faces of the moon, and I colored the other parts of the moon with black. After all the phases of the moon were completed, I am drawing in the lines behind them to mirror the way the constellations are laid out on star maps. This is really such a pretty spread that I think is a really great way to start out the year. Okay, now that the title and quote pages are done, it's time to move on to the calendar. Okay, I forgot to film the first part of this where I colored the moons with gold. I am so sorry about that. Anyway, I made the moon phases over top of each of the box be the actual moon phase that the moon is in for that day, which I think is a pretty cool touch. Now I will know what the phase the moon is for every single day in January. I made each day its own separate curved box, which I think looks pretty cool and futuristic. I love how in bullet journals you can pretty much just personalize every single aspect of it to what suits you the best. This actually reminds me a lot of the calendar I did for last year's January spread. I wrote over the moons with the day it is, either with my black fineliner or my white gel pen. The black fineliner doesn't show up that much on camera. Before I actually go in with the white gel pen, I'm writing the weekdays over each section with my black Tombow pen, and then, now that I'm finished the main part of the calendar, I'm tracing the different constellations all around the background of it. I try to make sure that these constellations were as close to real constellations as I could make them as well. I also put 2 of those star map guidelines in each of the corner of the page, as well, diagonal from one another. I like how they both look different, but complement each other. Then I went in once again with my marigold paint pen and colored half of the stars on this calendar spread with it, much like I did on the last page. Oh yeah, if you want to know all of the art supplies that I'm using in this video, it will all be in the description below. Once again, when I finished the stars with the paint pen, I outlined those stars as well as the rest of the stars with my fineliner. Okay, now I finally decided to write in the days with my white gel pen, because I sort of forgot to do that before. Then, just like the last page, I colored the rest of the stars with the dark yellow Tombow brush pen, and I used the same color to color the dots of the constellations. I actually went back and did this to the previous page as well after I finished filming. After all of those constellations were finished, it is now time to move on to the habit tracker. Okay, so this was actually my first habit tracker that I used 2 pages for, and it was probably the most complicated habit tracker that I have ever done. I have 10 habits for this month, which is the most I have ever had in a habit tracker. I love how I am trying so many new things for it this month. Well, it is a new year and a time to try something new. The 10 habits I have are floss, journal, bullet journal, water, YouTube, read, 8 hours sleep, sketch, hand cream, and sea breeze. I also have a ring around the habit tracker. This was an idea that I got from my sister, who I inspired to start bullet journaling. If I do all of my habits on my trackers, then I get a color in the number on the center ring. This is going to be challenging since I have 10 habits, so there probably won't be much color there, but I will try my best. Again, I made the habit tracker look like the star map, which I think made it look super cool. I decorated the background with the stars and constellations once again, like I have done to all of the other pages from this month. You can see many of the same type of constellations that I have on the other pages appear onto this page, just because I have drawn so many on each page, and I'm drawing some of the most recognizable constellations. Although I wouldn't be able to recognize most of them unless I looked them up. Tracing all of the constellations takes a little while. Now I'm adding black dots in the white spaces around the constellations. Instead of moving on to the stars like I have on the other pages once I finish the constellations and dots, I am now drawing the actual dates in the tracker part of the page. This part probably took the longest of this whole page because there were 10 of the little habit tracker circles to fill out, and each took a little while to complete just on its own. I needed to create 31 little sections and write the numbers 1 to 31 in each of the 10 different circles. It was definitely a task that was a little mundane and a little repetitive, but it needed to be done since it really was the main part and whole reason for this entire spread. It really did look great when I was finished. Although it's not finished yet, I am still only a little bit more than halfway through. I knew this was going to take a while, but I didn't think it would take it this long, and keep in mind that this video is sped up by a lot. I know that this is a big reason why people would rather use planners than bullet journals, with how much time it takes and everything. But for me, part of the fun is spending a lot of time and working hard to create a bullet journal that I am truly proud of. It's both the journey and the destination that is fun and useful for me personally. But I do understand that for many people, they would view it as wasting too much of their time. Okay, now that I'm finally almost done with coloring all of those little circles, it would be time to start working on coloring in the stars. I already went over what colors I used and how I colored them all in on the other pages, so I'm really just not going to re-explain it again right now. I feel as if the colors really bring this page together, and it is finally beginning to look complete. Yay! Now this habit tracker is finally done, and it is now time to move on to the mood tracker, which I also decided to dedicate an entire 2-page spread to. This was also my first time making a mood tracker on 2 pages. It feels weird to me to draw something in the center of it that goes onto both of the pages. I simply wrote moods in that circle, and then drew and colored 4 tiny circles inside of it, each corresponding with a different emoji inside. Now I'm tracing the different constellations. I think it's cool how each day I'll get to color in multiple stars instead of just one for this mood tracker. I also made sure to write a day of the month next to each star. I love how all of the constellations look like they're intertwined with one another in this spread. These constellations are just drawn in whatever way I wanted them to be when I was drawing them. I didn't really try and base them off of real ones like I did on the other pages this month. I also made the stars in these constellations the actual star shape instead of the circles, since I drew these ones bigger than the other ones that I drew on other pages for this month. This page looks good, but definitely took a lot less time than the habit tracker page, which I think was a good thing. I can't spend all of my time bullet journaling. Now it's time to move on to the miscellaneous pages, where there are a few categories on each page. First, I am starting out with this bookshelf at the top of the page. I wrote the words books read and have a little moon and star constellation. Then I moved on to the TV shows and movies. I wrote over each of the titles with my black Tombow pen so they look thicker. Then I outlined the stars for the TV shows watched and moons for movies watched. I connected the stars so they looked like a very strange constellation. I also drew tinier stars behind many of the moon phases, as well as drawing in black dots. Now that that page is finished, I moved on to the playlist. I made the sections for the playlist out of another weird-looking star constellation. I made 9 sections, and I also have a place where I will write what I'm grateful for. Now I'm starting to color in the little shelves of the bookshelf. I also traced a few of the stars with that same marigold color, and the moons too. Then I colored in the back of the bookshelf with a dark yellow, but I made sure to leave the books white. After I used some of the other yellows and golds to trace the rest of the stars and moon, this ended up turning out to be such a bright and happy spread. I really love it. Then it was time to color the other page in the spread that has the playlist and gratitude. I colored in the stars on the playlist and constellation with all of the different golds and yellows as well. I also colored in the stars under gratitude with different colors too. Now it is finally time for the last 2 pages of this January setup. On this page, I have my January goals. At the beginning of last year, for the first few months, I had small goals for the month. I stopped doing that for most of them, but I decided to bring it back this year to see if it would work for me now. I have 5 goals, which consist of self-publishing a book that I wrote with my friends, to finish editing a book in a series that I am writing, keeping up with all of my New Year's resolutions, researching colleges, since even though I am only a sophomore in high school, my dad is helping me research and prepare, and finally do this journaling challenge that a YouTuber named Carrie Walker is doing. Since this part didn't fill up the full page, I also put a quote on the bottom of the page. This quote says, "Who you are tomorrow begins with who you are today." On the weekly spread 1, I only have Friday, Saturday, and the next week section. I used my black Tombow pens to trace the weekly days, and then I'm coloring in the moons on each section with the black and gold colors. So often the moon is colored as blue and the sun is colored as gold, but I like how I sort of switched it up with the January theme. It shows that the moon can shine as bright as the sun. Next to each of the weekly titles, I also made sure to draw a constellation, which I thought was pretty cool. So I traced each of those and then colored the dots with the dark yellow. I also wrote the date at the bottom of each section, and then I was finished. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed setting up my January bullet journal. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you'll get notified every time that I post a new video. I post videos every single Wednesday and Saturday. Bye, and remember, keep being creative.